Hey friends, welcome back to the show. If you are new to the Mentor Nation podcast, I want to be the first to welcome you. And just know that each week we have creators, entrepreneurs on the show that just share the wisdom that they would give an audience if they were paid $250,000 cash to give a keynote speech. And that's the premise of the entire show. All that I ask is that you hit that subscribe button on Apple or YouTube. And if you enjoy the episode that you listen to, do me a favor and just leave a review. Today, we have an incredible guest with a very powerful story on overcoming obstacles and limiting beliefs. Gary Buckmann was a world champion gymnast in his prime when an accident left him paralyzed with a broken neck. I can't even imagine something like that happening in your prime. Doctors said he would never walk again. And Gary was unable to accept this diagnosis. He used his mind to heal his body, and even more shocking, he came back from his injury to have his best gymnastics year ever before going on to work with many Olympic gold medalists as their mindset coach. I would want this guy as my mindset coach. In this episode, Gary shares his story and his personal beliefs, and more specifically, his mental strategies that he used to accomplish very difficult things and overcome unbelievable obstacles. He also shares the incredible mental techniques that he used to help the most elite athletes on earth perform under pressure, and how you can do the exact same thing. Gary is an inspiration to so many, so just make sure you sit back and enjoy the interview. All right, Gary, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I am excited. I'm excited for our chat today. We're going to share some things with the audience, and I'm excited to have you share some of your wisdom.
Well, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I really wanted to focus this interview on, first off, your really incredible story, but more importantly, how you help people all over the world achieve what you call the impossible. And I'm excited to dig into that. I like the sound of that, achieving the impossible. So are you working with Elon Musk, helping him put people on Mars?
No. I think he's on another level.
Yeah, exactly. So you just released your book, Broken to Brilliant: Overcome Obstacles to Create Opportunities and Achieve the Impossible. And I just wanted to see if we could start by having you share a little bit about your story, specifically the part where your life changed drastically and you had to overcome really a major life and death obstacle. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. I was, it was my sophomore year in college. I was 20 years old. I was like in the best shape of my life. I was a gymnast.
Yep.
And one day at practice on the vaulting event, I was working on a vault that only 2 or 3 people in the country were doing at the time. And from a full sprint, I ran down the runway. I took off on the wrong foot and instantly knew I was in trouble. And I made a snap decision midair to kick out of this multiple flipping vault and landed on my head from about 8.5 feet in the air, completely knocked me out. And when I regained consciousness, my neck was broken and I was paralyzed. And so my life changed. Here you are, on top of the world in the best shape of your life, and then all of a sudden you're like completely paralyzed. And I had to spend time in the hospital, in traction and different things. And during that time, the doctors came in, and said that I wasn't responding to any of the treatment. So I was going to be paralyzed for the rest of my life. And so I said, nope, that's not the plan, that's not what I had planned, although that wasn't the simplest thing. But actually what I did was I listened to my inner voice, and told myself that I was going to heal myself. I had no clue how or how long it would take or any of that kind of, situation. But just, knowing that that was possible for me and that I wasn't going to accept that diagnosis.
Yeah, I want to spend a minute here because I've seen this go both ways with people that I know, like right now. And, I see people, they have something terrible happen to them. a divorce or a stage 4 cancer diagnosis or a devastating injury. And then like some people, they just give up. They accept their fate. They start victimizing themselves. They feel sorry for themselves. And then others, they like prepare for battle. Like they're like, not me. Why do you think you chose the second option? And why do you think some people settle and go the other way?
Well, first, the reason that I didn't settle for that option, I think had to do a lot with my mother.
Mm.
My mother was 4'11" and 90 pounds, but she was this tough Iowa farm girl. And she always told me that no matter what, I could accomplish anything when I put my mind to it. And she always reminded me that dynamite came in small packages because I wasn't that big either.
Yep.
But I think it had a lot to do with my mother. And also, my upbringing, I had a wonderful childhood and everything. But I grew up in the 50s and the 60s. And, we weren't poor, but, we had to work for everything.
Right.
So like when I wanted things, in life, I said, well, can I have this? And they go, well, how much is it? And usually the answer was, no, we can't afford it. No, get your head out of the clouds. You can't have this or whatever, and then, so I started to try to figure out ways to, get what I needed, like go out and work for it or build something, One of the stories in the book is about a unicycle. It's called the unicycle story. And I went to a 4th of July parade and I saw this unicycle club and I was just fascinated. I was like in the 5th grade and I saw this unicycle club and I thought, oh my God, I want to do that, So, I went home and, and I asked my dad, I said, can I have a unicycle? And he goes, well, let's see how much they are. Of course, they were as much as a house payment in those days. So he said, no. So then I said, well, can I build one? And he said, yeah, we got an old tricycle. So I ended up building a unicycle, so it was like my childhood. I was figuring out ways to get what I needed and what I wanted. So I really didn't settle for, the no answer all the time, or you can't have this, you can't have that. So I think that had a lot to do with it.
Gotcha. Now I want to talk about how you healed yourself. So the doctors really, they came in and they told you that you're never going to walk. Like they just broke that kind of news to you. Or did they say like, that's just crazy, guys? Cause I see a lot of doctors do that. They like place bars and limitations around, like, I don't know if do you think it's just so you don't get your hopes up, or do you think they really believe that you're going to be paralyzed through your entire life?
That's a great question. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think that, they have to be, very conservative in their diagnosis a lot of times, for insurance reasons. One thing probably, they're like, oh my God, I'm not going to tell you you're going to walk again, and then you come, or whatever. But I think, for me, when I did it, it was 1972. They didn't have all of the technology that they have today. All we had was x-rays. And so they're looking at the x-rays and they're going, oh my God, and then after, weeks of treatment, then they said, well, you're not responding. So they just came in and said, you're going to be like this for the rest of your life. And I said, no, but it's like, I think a lot of times they just go with what the training that they've had. And they don't want to get your hopes up. Like you said, they don't want to just do that, give you false hope.
Yeah, that's crazy. And obviously, you made the decision at that moment to heal yourself. And I want to have you spend a minute on how you did that, because I believe that, obviously being paralyzed can be a metaphor for a lot of people's lives. It doesn't necessarily mean their neck, but whether it's financially, whether it's mentally, a lot of people are in a place right now where they feel paralyzed or they feel stuck and they don't know what to do. And, you really you were in the worst situation that you could possibly be. And you actually healed yourself mentally. And you talk about that obviously in your book. And I want to just have you share, what did you do? Like, was it just positive reinforcement every single day? Was it exercises? Was it self-talk? Like, what were the things that you actually did in the very beginning?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's a combination of a lot of things again. But, the first thing I think is, once you make a decision, a committed decision to do something, then it's kind of like, the universe lines up behind you to make things happen for you, instead of, if you decide, okay, I'm done. then that's what the universe will line up for you, But if it goes the other way, then the universe lines up things where support and, everything for you and synchronicities and all that kind of stuff. But, so I think it's making a committed decision, and, when I made the decision, it took me, I just didn't make it like a snap decision, I did tell the doctors at the time, said, no, doc, that's not the plan. But then what I did was, I remember, like after he told me that, he kept talking to me and I was like, rah, 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 rah. I didn't hear anything he said, because my inner chatter was on overdrive going, oh my God, my life is over, all these kind of things. And so, yeah. But I do remember telling the nurses, to not let anybody in to see me for that day, not even my teammates who were coming in all the time. And I said, I just needed a whole day to myself. And what I did was I just went through the gamut of emotions, processed them, felt them, let them run in through me. And then, after that, I gave myself like 24 hours and just to let everybody know there's no timetable to this. It could be a day, it could be a week, it could be a month, it could be years, whatever it is, but, you have to process it. But, my athletic mindset, said, okay, you get 24 hours and then we're back on it, and so then what I did was, I here you are, I'm laying flat on my back in traction and I'm staring up at a white ceiling. And as a gymnast, we used to visualize our routines, seeing ourselves going through routines and hitting them, like a lot of athletes do. So that was my main tool at the beginning, I used visualization right off the bat. And, I visualized myself healthy and back in school and back with my teammates and back, doing gymnastics and, all that kind of thing. But I even went, a step further than that, where, I was visualizing the nerve impulses going from my brain through the neural pathways into my muscles and making them work. I was a physical education major. Right. So, I did a lot of things, and I was, and I felt myself, back in, healthy again and back doing what I wanted to do in my life. Obviously nothing changed in the moment. I'm still in bed in traction and pain and, and paralyzed, but I think, that's, how it starts.
Gotcha. And I think a lot of people don't realize how strong the connection is between mind and body. And, Tony Robbins does a great exercise. I've been to a couple of his events, and it's just how he talks about energy is such a crazy thing. You could change your mood and shift your energy like right away. And there's this exercise where you talk to the person sitting next to you, and he puts you through different situations, like pretend you're angry or pretend you haven't seen that person in 20 years and they're your long lost best friend. And you can tell right out of the gate, you could see your mood, your energy levels changing. And I think people dismiss how much power you actually do have over your emotions, your healing, your mood. It's really, really crazy. And it's crazy to see. Now you healed yourself pretty quickly. I mean, from being never walking again, like what happened right after that? What was the timeline for that to when you were back up and running?
Well, it was, completely, I got back into competition probably within a year's time or so, but not completely all the way. But by 74, 75, because I did this in 72, because by 74, 75, I had my best season of my life, of competing. I actually came back stronger than before the injury because I was a little bit more mature now and older, and I retrained myself and did things. But yeah, it took me all the way until, like 74, a 2-year period to really get it all back together,
So you went from paralyzed, not able to walk, to performing better than you had before your injury in 2 years. That's great. Now, did you fully heal, or did you still have a lot of pain and things like that? Or was it as if it never happened?
Well, now after I healed everything, it was like it never happened. But I was in pain for a lot of months. What the actual injury was what they call a compression fracture, where when you land on your head and it just compressed the vertebral column in it, and it disintegrated the disc in between the 6th and 7th vertebrae, and it cracked the 7th vertebrae in half, and it also subluxed and flipped out like this. But the back muscle spasmed them back in together. So, to make a long story short, I actually, when I first woke up, I couldn't feel anything from the neck down.
Yep.
And then within, I don't know how many minutes it was, 10, 15 minutes or something, when the shock wore off or whatever from my body, the pain was just immense in my neck and in my back, and I had, my arms were already gone. At that point, I got my legs back, and believe it or not, the trainer came in and did a bunch of tests on me, did all that, and put a neck brace on me, and actually had me get up on my own power and walk out of the gym with him and go to the doctors. And then while I was at the doctors, taking x-rays, my left leg went dead. So I'm thinking, oh my God, now it's creeping and getting more of me. So when I went into the hospital, I had no arms and no left leg. And then I went into traction. Wow. So, and it was just, so for months, when I got, when I finally got my leg back, I was visualizing, I got my leg back after some weeks in the hospital. And then, I actually walked, and then the doctor said, well, there's nothing more I can do for you. So they let me go. So I went home back to the team house with my teammates to live, and they were now my nursemaids. They took care of me and fed me and, that kind of stuff. But their support was another big reason for my healing, because they were there for me 24/7. They didn't treat me any different. I was the butt of a lot of jokes, they had a very interesting way of feeding me sometimes from across the table with a spoon, but I mean, it was just, it was that 20-year-old mentality though, that was really helped me heal, because they treated me normal.
Gotcha. Now, side note, before we get into the major point of this talk, my daughter, she's 4, we put her in gymnastics. So is there a lot of training today that prevent things like this from happening? I mean, you had an injury, and I know in an interview that I listened to you when I was researching what I wanted to talk about with you today, you said that they just didn't have, the coach had trained you in a way that led to your injury. Is like, can you just take a minute and talk about that? And like, what are the things in place now to prevent things like that happening from like all the time?
Well, one of the things that's nice about it, the gym facilities now are so much better than when we had, the matting obviously is better, but they have these in-ground pits, foam-filled pits and things now where they can train people so that if they do take a shot like I did, they're going to walk away from it. You know what I mean? I mean, there's always mental errors that the athlete can make, but in the training of it, a lot, there's so much education going on in USA Gymnastics now, and they have safety programs and training programs going on, and they have to get coaches certifications and stuff. And we didn't have any of that stuff, So it's, a lot of it is now from trial and error. They fixed a lot of things. And so like, for instance, the reason that I got asked, to be on the USA coaching staff is that my students had so much success. And the reason that they had success is because of the program that I developed from the broken neck. I wasn't going to let that happen to one of my athletes, you know what I mean? So I developed a step-by-step sequential program to develop total body awareness so that when my students were performing a skill, they either said, oh my gosh, I'm going to nail it because I set it up right, or uh-oh, I messed up, and they have to compensate and still save themselves, safety first and consistency second. So I think the sport has come a long ways since 1972 till now.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I just, as a parent, I get worried. I'm like, oh my gosh, like one wrong move or one slip up or one second guess when you're doing, I mean, she's only 4. So right now she's just jumping up and down on the trampoline, and it just, so I don't have to worry about that. But I see, the other age groups, and I'm just like, wow, like what's that like? And that leads me into what I wanted to talk to you about, especially, in your book, is you come back from that, and then you not only perform better than you ever have, but then you go on to coach gymnastics on the highest level after, like Olympic gold medalists. What does coaching on that level look like?
Oh, wow. It's amazing. When you get, when you're training these national and elite level athletes, and elite level athletes are amazing human beings. They know who they are. They're not all full of themselves and boastful and conceited. They just let their actions speak for them. They're very nice, humble people. But, training on that level is a lot of dedication, because, my kids were coming in like 5 days a week for 6 hours a night. And I was getting them out of school. They were coming in at 2, or 1. They were coming in at 1 and they were leaving like at 7 o'clock at night, and I would give them, grades for PE and get them out of election. So it was like, there's a lot of dedication, but when you're coaching at that level, it's so exciting because it's not like the school system or something where, some kids are there to learn and some aren't.
Yep.
Everybody is there to learn, and they're just hungry, and and it's so exciting. It's thrilling. Every day you come in, it's like, okay, and I learned, and I think I talk about it in the book too, is like, no, I know I talk about it in the book, is that I learned as much or more from my students than I ever taught them, because of the feedback they would give me, and just being able to, just having that kind of a relationship with athletes, for that many hours a day, it was incredible.
Gotcha. So you obviously had that experience in the 70s, and then you went on and you actually just recently wrote your book. So we're talking, decades later. What is the main message of your book? What are you trying to get across to people that is the culmination of all of the experience that you've had through your tragedy, through your training, through you coaching world-class people, helping them overcome just like, I could only imagine, they're in the Olympics and they, at some point they get maybe intimidated or something, and you have to like snap them out of it. So like, what is the main message of your book that you're trying to get across to people?
Well, the main thing is that, anything is possible, in life, no matter what it is, and in any aspect of your life. And the thing is like, if you can, I think the main thing is that the thing that paralyzes us most as human beings doing what we dream of or what we want to do or anything that we want is our own thoughts, our own programming, our own beliefs, that have come out of experiences, and what I wanted people to know, and I said at the end, like what helped me when I wrote this book was all of a sudden I connected a bunch of dots in my life.
Yep.
By going, oh my gosh, like I blamed my dad for teaching me the way he did. Like he was an amazing dad, and he taught me so many skills, how to build things and use all of his tools and do everything. But he would, I didn't think about it at the time, I didn't realize that he would be on a time schedule to get, projects done around the house. That's what he would include me in and teach me. So what he would do is, he would see that, he has to get this done. So he would send me off for a tool, and then he would finish the job. And I would come back and I would see that. And I go, oh my gosh, I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not talented enough, because he took it away from me and did it. So that screamed. So then you make up a story that you're not. So here's a belief that you carry as from a little kid to your adulthood. And it's running you. So if people become aware of, the stories that they tell themselves to make themselves safe and make sense out of their life when they're younger, if they can start to be aware of them and say, oh my gosh, you know what? If my dad wouldn't have taught me the way he did, I wouldn't have coached the way I did, and I wouldn't have gotten to the level that I got to. So thank you, Dad. But at the same time, I was, I blamed him my whole life. Say, oh my gosh, So I want people to know that if they can stop and in hindsight now and look back at their lives and look at their experiences and say, wow, like I can't do this and I can't do that, or, no way, I'm not ever going to try that, or whatever it is, and you think, well, wait a minute, point in case, and this is not in the book. Here I am, a guy that healed himself from a broken neck and paralysis, right? Well, the same guy, before he broke his neck, was at 19, was trying to learn how to snow ski. His friends took him up to Tahoe to teach him how to snow ski. Long story short, I had a terrible day. I wasn't dressed right. My girlfriend didn't know how to instruct me right. And I couldn't ski, and I crashed and burned and I was freezing. And so I make up a story. I'm not a snow skier. I'm a water skier. I don't like to be cold. And so that was it. That was the story I made up for myself. Well, 23 years later, when I'm 42, one of my staff members says, hey, I'm going to take you up snow skiing. And I said, no, you don't understand. I'm not a snow skier. And he says, no, really, I'm taking up snow skiing. And I go, oh. So he bugged me so much, and I went. And I'm thinking I'm going to have the worst day of my life again and relive that whole thing all over.
Yep.
And I get up there, and long story short again, he dresses me right. He tells me what to do, and by midday I'm skiing the intermediate slopes and I'm having the time of my life. And all of a sudden I'm on the chairlift on the way up in this beautiful, serene surrounding in Tahoe, California. And I'm on the chairlift and I'm looking around going, oh my gosh, look at where I'm at. And what else? What else have I been missing out on my life because I believed I couldn't do something? And see how it is. Here I am. I have the strength to heal myself. And at the same time, I have this story that I told myself that held me back and I'm the same person. And we all have that. You know what I mean? So if we can look at things and say, is that really true? Because it didn't make any sense to me.
Right.
I'm a gymnast. I'm strong. I'm flexible. I got balance. I taught myself how to ride a unicycle. I'm a skateboarder. I'm all that. But I can't snow ski. But that's what I convinced myself of.
That's crazy. So you obviously work with a lot of people in this. I want you to ballpark it because I don't think anybody has the answer, but you work with enough people and I think maybe you can make an educated guess. You work with a lot of people from average to elite. What percentage of people's potential do you think the average person actually uses daily? If you had to guess, just guess.
If I had to guess, I would say probably like a third. The average person would probably use about a third of what they're capable of doing. It's just amazing.
That's wild. And if you could help someone, I think the first step obviously is realizing that. What would be the second step? How do you tap more into that potential? I'm curious because it's rare that I have someone on the podcast that has worked with the highest level of people in a sport or in the world, like at the top 100th of 1%. And so I'm just really curious as to like, what are some of the things that you actually say and do to help people like tap into more of their potential? Especially now that you're working with, regular people,
right?
And they're not at the top 100th of 1%, but you still need to help them tap into that. But like, what do you say to them? What do you do with them to help them get there?
Yeah. It's like I said before, like the reason I got hurt was lack of awareness. So what I try to do is make them aware of, first of all, what is your goal? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to accomplish, and then try to work with them and say, well, what have you been doing? And how can we, what do you think you need to do to get to the next level or do whatever you're going to do, and then start making up, like basic things to help them along the way. It's like in the sport, one of the things that I talked about in the book was the greatest compliment I ever got, in the sport was from one of my entry level competitors, just a local competitor. That's, and the thing about it was all the things that people learn from going through basic things that they need to learn, the basic steps, no matter what it is. You're going to get your business up. What's the basic thing you got to start with? This, so you go through the steps. You don't shy away from the struggle. You don't say, oh my, this is too much. You just take one step at a time. And then from there, you learn something and you move on. And so you develop that awareness. But with this compliment that I got from my entry-level gymnast was that, I ran into her mother at a grocery store, and she said, oh my gosh, Gary, she goes, let me tell you about Tori. She's at UCLA, and it's her sophomore year. She's the president of her sorority. She's got a double major, and she's getting straight A's in school, and it's all what you taught her in gymnastics. And I'm what I taught her. I thought I taught her basic skills to do things. She goes, no. She learned time management and goal setting and conflict resolution and, all of that kind of stuff. And it's all because of you, so it's all of the things behind the scenes, right. that you try to make people aware of and say, hey, look what you're doing. A lot of times what I try to make people aware of is all of us have a gift and a talent, all of us on the face of the earth, to share with the world. But most of us think that gift and talent is nothing. Like, right. You might be somebody that's really good at organizing, right? And organizing. But how many people need people to organize their closets or their rooms or their houses? Or, you know what I'm saying? And they go, well, everybody can do that. That's the typical statement I get. Well, everybody can do that. For example, you saying, like, I never told the story of me healing for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think it was a big deal. I thought everybody would just do that. I just thought that was how it would be. That's my mindset. So what I try to do is make people aware of, well, what do you like? What are you good at? What are you great at? And what do you love? And then when you find all of that, intersect, so put what you like and what you're good at, whatever it is, and then see, and what do you like and love and that you're good at? And then say, okay, here's your gift. And then, you know what? Now let's see what we can do to develop.
I really, really like that advice. I've never heard anybody say that before. Can you say that just one more time to reiterate? So what do you like? What do you love?
Yeah. What do you like? What do you love? What are you good at? And what can you do that, maybe you don't like so much, but what are the other talents you can do? So you can get them all. And then when you finally find, we learned this from another person, about this, just finding out, but it's great because when you find what you're good at, great at, like, and love. And so when you find what you're great at and you love to do, then that's your gift that you want to share with the world.
I love that. Speaking of what you said on organizing, my wife and I were watching, I hate the show, but we watched this Netflix show, and I'm not even kidding you. These celebrities, and the reason we watched it is because it's a little company here in Nashville, actually. And celebrities all over the world fly these ladies out to reorganize their pantry. I don't mean their whole house. I'm talking about their kitchen closet. And the whole time I'm watching this, I'm just like, people really pay for that. They pay thousands of dollars and they fly you out to Los Angeles to take yes, it's kind of a pretty good sized pantry, but I'm just like, that's so crazy. And not only are they getting paid a ton of money, but they got a damn Netflix show from it. And so it just goes to show that, you could be talented at anything and you can make a business, a career, a life. It's your gift. And in people, anytime you're better than 90% of anybody at anything, no matter how mundane, you can absolutely give your gift to the world. And there's the demand for that. It's really, really, really powerful. So,
and another little tip that you can do is, how your friends are always saying, wow, you're really good at that. And you always, we always brush up, oh yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
But, pay attention to that. Become aware of that. What do your friends tell you that you're really talented at, that you don't think is a big deal? You know what I mean? And because there's a good indicator right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to finish off with a couple rapid fire questions, if you don't mind. Just some things that have really helped shaped you in your life. First, I just want to ask, is there a book besides yours, obviously, that has really shaped the way that you think, the way that you operate, that has given you a really an aha moment in your life? What book that, if you had one to think of?
Well, I would have to say Dr. Joe Dispenza, You Are the Placebo, because that guy has got all of the science behind mind over matter, thoughts become things. And he's, and he had the same kind of thing. I don't know if you know about Joe Dispenza.
Oh yeah. I've been trying to get him on the podcast.
Oh, perfect. Oh yeah. Okay. So, that's the guy that, because I was thinking, somebody asked me earlier one time about, well, this happened to me in 1972. There wasn't anybody, I didn't have somebody to go to. And and so I was so excited when I read his book, because I went, oh my gosh, that's what I did. And I didn't know I did that. And now he's got proof. It works. I'm so excited. So he's changing lives in the world big time. And so that's my main book.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love his work. And every time you listen to him speak, it's just like, wow, are you kidding me? It's pretty incredible. My next question is if you could go back in time to your 20-year-old self and you can only spend 45 seconds with yourself and then boom, you vaporize. Is there anything you would tell yourself that you think would save you some headache, heartache, or some struggle?
Yeah, definitely. I would tell my 20-year-old self to listen to your intuition. Because when I when I got injured, I'd been doing that vault all day long. This, the I got hurt on the 11th try that day at practice, the 11th try. And the first 10 of them were all crashes and burns. And so it's like, something told me, before I even went out the vault, because I was having a terrible practice that day. I mean, I was having the worst practice of my life.
Right.
And internally something said, you might as well, you should just call it a day and go home. But no, the ego pushes, no, you got to keep going. You got to keep going, So I would tell my 20-year-old self to listen to my intuition, to my inner voice, because, I talked about that in the book also, about when I was 3 years old. I was, my mom was taking my sister and I to the store, and she parked the car in the driveway to go close the garage door because it was 1954 and there was no automatic garage door closers in those days.
Yeah.
And, we have a stick, obviously, and so she forgot to put the emergency brake on. So she's out closing the garage door and the car starts rolling backwards down the driveway. And so I'm in the back seat by myself. And so I think, okay, and I'm screaming and yelling, she's not hearing me. So I just, opened the back door, got on the seat and broad jumped out to the lawn, thinking, yeah, I saved my life. My mom ran back, stopped the car, and then she's coming over and I got my chest sticking out like, I'm Superman, just saved the day. And I'm so, and I'm thinking she's going to come over and say how proud she is of her son. And she beats, the living tar out of me, because she's, saying you could have been killed and you never jump out of a moving car, her fears, projecting them on me. And so it's kind of like I listened to myself, but here's another story, right? You get a story from a young age. Well, it's not good to listen to your intuition because you get beat for it.
That's right.
So it's like, we all have that inner voice. And, for me, it literally got beat out of me, but, it gets beat down on us, from society and programming and, experiences. And, and so you don't trust it. So that's what I would just tell my 20-year-old self, just trust your intuition.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. Now, did you ever land that vault, that really difficult one that ended up breaking your neck? Did you ever go back and try it when you were, when you healed yourself, or just?
I did. Yeah, I actually did one. Yeah, I did. I and it's funny. I tell people I only did one. I did it in practice. I did it. I changed my vault. I did another vault, another multiple flipping vault. But I did it one day in practice.
That's awesome. It must have felt pretty good to do that.
Yeah, just it's kind of like getting back on the horse.
Yeah, one and done. It's like, I don't need to do it anymore. I prove anything to myself. I've done it. So I want to finish up. Obviously, I really appreciate a lot of the wisdom you shared today. Some great insights, and a lot more are in your book. I'm excited to grab your book. I'm very excited for everybody to know where to pick up your book. You've had a lifetime of coaching, helping, and teaching people at the highest level. You have used your mind purposefully to do some things that few people ever do. And so I'm excited to see the insights in your book. Where is the best place that people can pick that up, get the book? How can people follow you, your work, your content, and just your journey and what you're doing? For anyone that's interested that this interview impacted them, where can people continue to follow you and your work?
Okay, perfect. Well, you can get the book at brokentobrilliant.com.
Okay.
I'll take you right to the site. And if you want to check me out a little bit, you can go to my website, and that's garybuckmann.com. And it's Buckmann. There's 2 N's on my name.
You definitely have to point that out.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I'll put those in the show notes. And so everybody has access to the guys. If you're listening, pick up the book. It's, I read voraciously. I'm a big believer in books because to me, somebody spends just weeks and weeks and weeks and months putting the right words to sum up a lifetime of experience into, usually a couple hundred pages that you can read in 3 or 4 hours. And I just think it's one of the most powerful ways in the world that people can absorb a lifetime of knowledge and experience from somebody else. And so I highly encourage everybody to grab the book. And Gary, I really appreciate your time. You shared some really valuable stories, some great insights, and maybe one day in the future, we can have you back on the podcast just to talk about programming. I think we didn't dive deep enough into that. And I think there's a lot to be said there on just the programming that we get when we're kids, and we don't realize until we're way older, and I'm with you. Like my dad, he told me this too when he was alive. He died 3 years ago, and he told me this. He's like, one day when I'm dead, he's like, you'll look back and you'll realize that some of the advice that I gave you is actually helpful and meaningful. And, when I'm in high school, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. No way. I know better. But as you get older, you realize that it's true. And so I think there's a lot to be said there. And I'd love to pick your brain on some of those things in another interview. But I really do appreciate your time. And I thank you for sharing some wisdom. And I'm excited to stay connected and hopefully have you back on here one day.
Well, thank you so much. And I would be, more than glad to come back on.
Absolutely. Well, I wish you all the best with a great book launch. I know it's going to absolutely do well. And I'm looking forward to following your success and hopefully see you write another 1 or 2 books and start that podcast with you and your wife.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.